People who are poor and without parents are out of the question.
After making that declaration, the CEO forcefully splashed the water from his glass onto my sister. My sister, usually mild-mannered, stared at the CEO with an unexpectedly icy gaze and said with a steady voice,
Understood. In that case, please consider $200 million deal null and void.
What?
"My name is John Strong. I work in sales at a real estate company. I'm in my 40s, and I've been so focused on my work that I've remained single up to this point. People around me often suggest I should marry, but the concepts of marriage and family somehow don't resonate with me. Perhaps it's because of the environment I grew up in. Since losing my parents in an accident as a child, I have lived with just my sister, Alice. She scrimped and saved in various ways to raise me. To me, my sister has been more like a parent, really. I remember her working multiple part-time jobs as if it were yesterday, always busy. My hard-working sister is someone I'm truly proud of. The thing is, there's a place I'd like you to come with on the Sunday after next." Recently, a CEO of a client company mentioned through a sales rep that he wanted to introduce me to his friend's daughter. It's basically a setup, a blind date, and they're looking for someone serious and with determination. I'm not in a hurry to get married, but it seems the other party is quite enthusiastic. I was asked by the sales rep, and since the introduction was made by a CEO we do business with, I agreed to go ahead and arrange the meeting as suggested.
That's fantastic. Is the lady the daughter of a CEO? Marrying into that kind of family, you'd be set.
So, how does your schedule look like that day? I won't force you, but I'd like you to come if you can. If they're bringing a parent, it only makes sense for my sister, who's my only family, to be there too.
Sure, I can make it. It's your big day after all. I'd better book a hair appointment right away.
My sister was as excited as if it were her own affair, getting ready with such eagerness. Just seeing her like this made me feel it was worth agreeing to this setup. The day of the meeting finally arrived. It was just me and my sister on our side. On their side, it was Emily Carter and her father.
It's truly a pleasure to introduce a fine and earnest young man like you, John.
While we were nervous, the CEO was the only one chatting away with ease. I guess speaking in public comes naturally with his job. And if you were to marry my daughter, you'd be set for life, you know. After all, our company is currently negotiating a huge deal. Just between us, it's a transaction worth $300 million. $300 million. Watching the CEO boast in front of us, his daughter Emily looked embarrassed and gently scolded him with a smile.
Hey, Dad, why don't we listen to what John has to say instead?
Oh, my apologies. Got carried away there.
Emily's intervention was a relief to me. Thinking about the CEO becoming my father-in-law if I married her gave me pause about the future. The CEO cleared his throat and turned to us.
By the way, I see your sister is here with you today. What about your parents?
Yes, my parents passed away when I was young. To the CEO's question, I explained our situation. As I continued, I could see the CEO's expression turning grimmer.
What, is that so? Then John, you mean to tell me your only family is your sister?
Yes, My sister worked multiple part-time jobs to raise me. I owe it to her for acting as a parent and enabling me to pursue college and work for this company. Reflecting on my life, I couldn't help but feel deeply indebted to my sister once more. I've never seen my sister just lounging around. In my memories, she's always been a whirlwind of activity, juggling household chores and work. But as I was lost in these farts, an irritated voice broke through. It was the CEO's.
What? Part-time jobs? I can entertain the idea of a match with someone who leads such a poor life and only has a sister for family.
The friendly facade he had maintained up until now vanished, and he looked at us with disdain. With furrowed brows, he spat out his words at us.
To think you had the audacity to assume you could marry Emily, the CEO's daughter. To boldly go through with a blind date, that's the problem with poor folks. They are shamelessly presumptuous. Someone without parents and poor to boot is completely out of the question.
After his cutting remark, the CEO flung the water from the glass on the table towards my sister.
Hey, Dad, what are you doing?
What's the meaning of this? Emily looked pale as she stared at her father, appalled by his atrocious behavior. I was beyond furious and leaned in to retort. But at that moment, my sister, who had remained silent and still, stopped me. Normally mild-mannered, my sister now fixed the CEO with a gaze so cold it was startling. Beside her, I could feel the intensity of her anger radiating in waves. Despite her hair getting wet and droplets falling from it, my sister spoke up with a dignified voice.
Understood. Then please consider the $200 million deal as null and void.
What?
The CEO let out a sound involuntarily, as if he couldn't help himself. We were just as confused as he was. Everyone except for my sister was frozen in place, unsure of what was happening. What on earth was my sister talking about? Unable to comprehend, I just stared at her stern profile.
Null and void. Who do you think you are?
The CEO sneered mockingly, glaring at my sister. But my sister didn't show any sign of flinching and responded smoothly.
Since you've deemed our proposal as out of the question, I'm simply saying we should consider the deal null and void too.
At a glance, my sister maintained a very calm demeanor, but to me, who has been with her as family for so long, it was clear. She was truly furious deep down.
What are you on about? You think you can talk back to me? Even calling it sour grapes would be ridiculous. Our family business, Davis Manufacturing, is in talks with the famed East Capital Tech Innovations. What possible connection could you, a nobody, have with them?
I hate to side with this CEO, but just this once, I agree. What kind of relationship could possibly exist between the CEO's business negotiations and my sister? But my worries aside, my sister coolly dropped the bombshell.
I happen to be a major shareholder in East Capital Tech Innovations.
Don't give me that nonsense. Even as a joke, it's not funny.
The boss turned his face away in displeasure. I too found it hard to believe what my sister had said on the spur of the moment. The inheritance left by our parents was meager, and recalling the simple life my sister and I had lived, it seemed impossible that she could be wealthy enough to hold a large amount of stock in a renowned company. My sister worked multiple part-time jobs from dawn to dusk just to put me through college. Growing up, I saw her constantly being called away at a moment's notice, so the idea that she had the means to invest in stocks seemed far-fetched. The most luxurious thing we could afford was buying a cake for Christmas, which was our modest celebration. Yet, my sisters stood there, unfazed by our gazes, confidently owning the space.
If you find it curious, please go ahead and verify it. My name is Jane Strong. It's listed on the homepage of East City Tech Innovation.
With my sister's unwavering look upon him, the CEO begrudgingly took out his smartphone. Then, in the next instant,
No way, that's ludicrous.
it appears that my sister's name was actually listed there. When I checked myself, there it was, Jane Strong. My sister's name was clearly written as a key shareholder of East City Tech Innovation.
Unbelievable. How on earth could such a pauper become a shareholder? What sort of error could allow that?
The CEO, while holding his head and moaning, scoured the home page from end to end, as if praying he was mistaken. Then, with a grimace like he'd bitten into a sour grape, he eked out his voice.
Even if Jane Strong really is a major shareholder, don't get too cocky, you pauper.
The CEO, breathing heavily through his nose, gave my sister a fierce look. So what about a mere $200 million? For my company's size, $200 million is chump change. I couldn't believe these were the same lips that, moments ago, were bragging so much about a $200 million deal. I was utterly astounded. Does this person have any other criteria for making decisions, or is it just money? Maybe it takes such an obsession with cash to build such a massive corporation in just one generation, but I can't help feeling that's not the right way to judge everything.
Go ahead, try it. But don't think for a second that you can bring down my company with that. We've got plenty of other big players we deal with.
Is that so?
In stark contrast to the CEO, who was insistent to the point of spitting, my sister simply replied coolly with a single sentence. Realizing his provocation had fallen flat, the CEO's face twisted for a moment.
Listen, I'm dead serious here. Don't come crying and apologizing later because I won't accept it. Wait a second, this whole story is nonsense.
The CEO suddenly slapped his knee as if he had an epiphany. Then he began to smirk and laugh to himself.
Man, I almost let my guard down. To think I almost got fooled by someone like you. That was a close call.
The CEO, laughing uproariously by himself, looked at my sister.
You assert yourself with such confidence that I almost believed you. The major shareholder listed here isn't you. It's someone with the same name, isn't it? Nonetheless, you did a good job finding that person.
What the CEO meant to say, it seems, is that the Jane Strong listed as a major shareholder on the East Tech Innovations website is just another person with the same name as my sister. But could there really be such a convenient coincidence?
If you don't want to believe it, that's your prerogative.
My sister replied indifferently as she dried her wet hair and clothes with a towel borrowed from the store. However, the CEO, confident in his opinion, began to argue back vigorously.
There's no way a poor kid without parents could work part-time and become a major shareholder, even if the name's the same. You probably don't even know what kind of company East Tech Innovations is, do you? I happen to be acquainted with the chairman over there.
The CEO, now smug, bragged with a hearty laugh, unasked.
Dad, that's enough.
Emily tried to interject. but the CEO berated my sister even more.
How can I stay silent when we're being ridiculed like this? You have a right to be angry too, Emily. We were almost fooled into marrying into a poor family like theirs.
Stop it, Dad.
If we get tied to these poor folks, we'll be the laughing stock. It would have been a huge embarrassment.
Hearing that, I couldn't hold back any longer. I didn't care if they talked about me, but I couldn't stand them belittling my sister who raised me like a parent. How can you say such things?
I almost got tricked by you too.
As I raised my voice, it seemed the CEO had shifted his target to me.
When my buddy introduced you, I was expecting a hotshot real estate salesman from a major company. But to think you're just a poor orphan, and your only remaining sister works part-time, which isn't even worth mentioning.
The CEO, while looking me in the eye, was dripping with sarcasm as he kept on attacking me. It was true I got into a top real estate firm due to my own efforts, but a huge part of that was thanks to my sister's support. She lived frugally every single day to get me through college, even had times when she wouldn't buy more clothes than the bare minimum needed for decency.
What kind of underhanded tricks did you use to get into a famous company? Did you forge your college on your resume, or write some lies? Considering you're the brother of a poor person who pretends to be a shareholder, nothing would surprise me.
Smirking, the CEO alternately looked at me and my sister, mocking us. I didn't want to breathe the same air as this disrespectful man any longer. Not amused by my silence, he turned his gaze back to my sister.
What's the matter, poor girl? Come on, no come back. Struck silent by the truth, are you? You claim to be a shareholder, don't you? If you have any other proof, now's the time to show it.
The CEO was laughing his head off, seemingly having the time of his life, but my sister wasn't fazed. After neatly folding the towel she had finished with, she calmly opened her mouth.
If you need evidence that much.
She murmured softly and then began to make a phone call.
Who are you calling? Some uncle from the family coming to your rescue.
It was as if the CEO's words fell on deaf ears, or she was choosing to ignore them. My sister quietly spoke to the person on the other end of the line.
Is now a good time? Yes, the location is.
It seemed she was arranging for someone to come here.
This should be good. I wonder who could be gracing us with their presence.
The CEO kept pestering my sister in a snide manner, but she remained unfazed with a calm expression.
Maybe some uncle will come by with local sweets as a greeting. I'm not interested in mass-produced, cheap treats, though.
Well, we'll see. You just wait and see.
After that, my sister clammed up completely, responding with nothing more than well, or is that so? No matter how much the CEO tried to engage her. Eventually, it seemed he lost his enthusiasm and fell silent, leading to an awkward silence that lingered for a while. What on earth was my sister planning, and whom had she called? I just waited impatiently for time to pass. About 30 minutes later, a man walked into the room.
Apologies for the wait.
Sorry for the sudden call.
This is Carter from Carter Manufacturing.
The man, who looked to be in his 70s, was dressed in what seemed to be a very expensive suit. Of course, he wasn't a relative of mine, nor did I recognize him. He hugged my sister exaggeratedly, almost too zealously. I was wondering about their relationship when the CEO raised his voice irritably.
Hey you! Yes, you. Who do you think you are, walking in here all of a sudden?
I am.
As the man was about to reply, my sister smoothly raised her hand.
Allow me to introduce him. This gentleman is a colleague from my workplace.
I thought as much. Give it a rest, will you? I have no interest in meeting some poor person's acquaintance.
The CEO frowned displeasingly and waved his hand dismissively, as if shooing away a stray dog. Such behavior was excessively rude, even to someone he was meeting for the first time. To this, my sister tilted her head in feigned surprise and said,
Oh, you really don't know him?
There's no way I would know such a person from the Pua crowd. Are you looking for a handout? Go back to the countryside and work the fields. Even that fancy suit looks pitiful on you. Wouldn't you be better suited in rubber boots, working the land?
The CEO spat out the words with irritation, but my sister just smiled sweetly and retorted,
That's strange. You said earlier that you knew him.
What? I never said any such thing.
But this gentleman here is Carter, the chairman of Eastern Tech Innovations, a company I've been fortunate to work with.
Hell, what the, huh?
The CEO stood with his mouth agape. I also couldn't believe what was happening right in front of me. The man referred to as the chairman gave a pleasant smile and handed out his business card.
Nice to meet you. Please keep me in mind.
Printed on the card was indeed the title of chairman of Eastern Tech Innovations.
You said you were acquainted with the chairman of Eastern Tech Innovations, didn't you?
Well, the thing is,
Despite his earlier bragging about knowing him, it seemed like it was the CEO's first time meeting the chairman of Eastern Tech Innovations. But ignoring the CEO, my sister and the chairman were chatting away like old friends.
I'm always so grateful for your help.
Not at all. It's me who should be thankful. Strong.
Oh no, I'm just part-time at best.
Don't say that. You serve as a consultant, don't you?
Well, I do work reduced hours, so it's kind of like being part-time, isn't it?
My sister said, laughing. I had no clue, but it turns out my sister had been contracted as a consultant with Eastern Tech Innovations. The role of a consultant is to listen to the various concerns that the CEO of the company has, identify challenges in management and operations, and come up with solutions. Especially my sister, who has been contracted with Eastern Tech Innovations for quite some time, now participates in management meetings and offers advice on running the business. She never talked about her work, so I had absolutely no idea. I just knew she was working part-time, so I assumed she was helping out with clerical work or something. To think she was actually consulting for Eastern Tech Innovations, that would explain why she's a major shareholder.
This is Carter from Carter Manufacturing.
My sister introduced, and the chairman silently nodded. Then, with a sharp look in his eyes, which was a stark contrast to the jovial conversation he had with my sister earlier, he told the CEO in a stern voice,
For a while now, you've been calling people poor and throwing around insults.
no, that was, a bit of a misunderstanding, the CEO stammered.
The CEO was waving his hands frantically trying to explain himself, but the chairman glared at him even more intensely.
Our company does not tolerate such attitudes. It's unacceptable, not just within our walls, but also when dealing with our partners.
No, I deeply apologize. I had no idea you were the chairman. Had I known, I would never have said such things. I was completely fooled.
At the CEO's excuses, the chairman let out a heavy sigh.
It seems you still don't understand that it's wrong to change your attitude depending on who you're talking to. Anyway, from now on, our company will no longer do business with you.
What? That's $200 million in business.
As the chairman made his position clear, the CEO collapsed onto the floor, holding his head in despair.
I'm sorry for today's trouble.
Said Emily, who had been quietly observing until now. It was supposed to be a matchmaking meeting between Emily and me, and I felt sorry that it had turned into such a commotion. I'm the one who should apologize. It was a pleasure to meet you, despite the circumstances. As I lowered my head, my sister and the chairman looked sincerely apologetic. In the midst of our mutual apologies, the CEO suddenly seemed to have an idea and blurted out with inappropriate cheerfulness.
Hey, that's it. Right, John, my daughter is quite the beauty, isn't she? How about we call it even? I'll give my blessing to your marriage in exchange for closing the deal.
As he said this, the CEO turned towards my sister with a smile. The CEO's appalling behavior, treating his daughter as nothing more than a bargaining tool, sparked a different kind of anger in me. Hey, that's just not right, I blurted out, stepping up to the CEO, but surprisingly, it was Emily who held me back.
I would really like to get to know John and Jane better. Could you tell me more about both of you?
While I'm touched by your feelings, Emily.
Emily, good for you. That's it then, the marriage is decided.
The CEO was all smiles, slapping Emily on the back with delight. If Emily and I were to marry, the nearly lost deal would be signed and the company would be back on track. Despite Emily being a truly remarkable woman, I simply cannot tolerate her father's, the CEO's, conduct. As I grappled with these conflicting emotions, Emily chimed in.
No, I do want to go out with John, but I'm severing ties with my father after today.
What in the world are you saying, young lady?
So, what I'm saying is I no longer need a father who takes pleasure in looking down on others. I'm cutting ties, so the company's affairs have nothing to do with me.
Emily stated matter-of-factly before turning back to John and his sister. Emily's clear eyes seemed to pierce straight through my heart.
John, Jane, if you're okay with someone like me, I'd like to start dating John with marriage in mind.
Absolutely thrilled.
You've found a good match, haven't you?
My sister said, beaming as she patted John on the shoulder.
That's wonderful news. Please allow me to offer my congratulations as well.
The chairman, who had been listening beside her, also beamed at us with a full-faced smile and blessing. In a room filled with matrimonial cheer, the CEO alone was dejected, sinking to his knees.
No, this can't be. I don't want to believe it.
With a deal worth $200 million turning to ashes and being disowned by his daughter, the CEO was sprawled on the floor, burnt out like embers. It's been a year since then. Emily and I officially started dating and got married. Thanks to my sister's help, it goes without saying that we had a grand wedding, blessed by many. While we are living a blissfully happy married life, the CEO faced some tough times. After losing a $200 million deal, the CEO's company had to sell off most of its departments to deal with massive debts. Although my sister and the chairman claim they did nothing, It seems that the fallout from East City Tech Innovations pulling out of the deal triggered a domino effect, with other business partners walking away. My sister believes that the CEO's inherently arrogant and dismissive nature is why this incident was taken so seriously. As a result, he was forced to resign, taking responsibility for the company's huge losses after being pushed out of various ventures. Now, someone else is working hard to turn the company around. Afterwards, the CEO tried to leverage his experience by becoming a consultant, but, as mentioned earlier, his reputation for being haughty and arrogant preceded him, and he didn't manage to attract any clients. So now, he's reluctantly working part-time as a janitor, and from what I hear, he's getting chewed out daily because he can't do the job right. As for me, I'm enjoying a smooth start to our married life. Having a wonderful partner like Emily has given me even more drive in my work. With a baby on the way next year, I want to cherish my family even